stock in Ivan Demidov is apparently falling, with a new report saying that a lot of teams wouldn't risk taking him in the top 2 or 3 or even top 5 due to some new concerns. We're going to get into those, plus what Grant McCagg has to say about Ivan Demidov potentially falling to the Habs. And we're also going to go through a big draft combine recap, including some interviews, some people the Habs did and didn't take out to dinner, some defensemen that they might pick at number 5, and also some new interview questions that came out today that has some Habs fans not even concerned, just a little curious about what's going on. All coming up on this live episode of Habs Digest. Thank you everyone for being in here. It's your Monday Habs Digest live stream. We are so thankful to have everyone in here. And to start out the stream, we already got a super chat from Denis Ranger. Denis, thank you so much for being here as always. $10 saying, have a lot of fun watching you guys. We have a lot of fun having you in here, Denis, and to all our other channel members here. We got Denis, we got Ikram, we got Planko, and we got Jay Fowlerdo saying, good evening, guys. My birthday's on June 29th, so I hope for a good one from the Habs. Thank you, Jay. Well, hey, hope you tune in, but, if you got, you're around draft time, but if you got your birthday, it is what it is. We'll excuse you, but we got a lot of stuff to get into in today's episode, Jesse, and I think we're going to start a little bit with some of the new quotes coming out from today about some interviews, and we're going to start with this one. I'm going to pop this up. So, AJ Spellicy, he's a prospect that the Habs could take, maybe I think in the second, third rounds about where he's mocked. I could be wrong about that. But he said in his interview that the Habs interviewer asked him, you're on a plane, and the pilot asked if you prefer him to make his landing or do his best. I said that if he does his best, he will make the landing. That's why he's a pilot. Now, Jesse, we're going to get into some other stuff, including something from Michael Xhekaj as we take a look at AJ Spellicy's stats. 38 points in 67 games in the OHL as a right wing. Not the best, but he's a big boy, 6'2", 195. He's projected as a later round pick. What do you think of that answer? What do you think of these crazy questions the Habs are asking? And I want everyone in the chat to also send your favorite questions you've heard from so far from the draft combine from the Habs staff.
Well, the Habs are all about the character, right? So it almost makes sense that they'd be asking kind of those psychology type questions a little bit, getting to know the players, right? And apparently it's kind of a hit with a lot of the players at the combine. Sam Dickinson was saying, like, it kind of makes the Habs stand out. Like, we're doing lots of interviews. It can get a little bit dry, but we know it's not like that with the Habs, right? And they're asking these interesting questions to really kind of get their point of view. And I find there's probably some interesting conversations that are going on within the Habs camps. Like, I want to hear like their discussion about a lot of these answers, right? Because there's a lot of these different takeaways that you can really get from that. As we're going to discuss a little bit more, some really, really interesting ones, right? But I find it so like not just the question, Josh, but we're getting like the impromptu like stare downs. Right. Yeah. And everything like with them like out of nowhere, right? Like just kind of get in their head, see if they're gonna crack. And you know what? I kind of like, let's see what these prospects are made of. Let's see if they're made of ice, like our boy Owen Beck here, and because I kind of like that, right? They're saying how do they kind of react to the pressure, just or out of things you don't really expect. Of course, we'll get the real result in a couple of years, when we see how these players actually turn out. But you know what? They got my vote of confidence so far.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think one of the cool things about these questions is it's not always about the answer. In fact, I would say it's probably only a tiny percentage about the answer. It's about how the people answer and how they can interpret the question and how they think on their feet, right? Like, this kind of question, would you ask the pilot to do his best or would you ask him to land? It's like, it's not about, well, one of them's right, one of them's wrong. It's just about how does the person think? How do they see the game? And, you could have it go in so many different ways. And actually, I'd like to transition into the other quote that we have from Michael Xhekaj, another guy we've talked about in some videos before. He's really cool. We'll bring up his stats in a second. But he said, I think I actually got to bring this one up first. He was asked this: we're in a hotel and we're playing Madison Square Garden the next day. Your roommate decides to go out at 11 p.m. and comes back at 3 a.m. The next day, Martin St. Louis asks you if it's true that your roommate came home at 3 a.m. What do you do? Michael Xhekaj said, I'm not denouncing him. The Habs responded, so you don't want to get rid of guys who don't want to win? Xhekaj said, well, he's my teammate. I'll probably talk to him to get him back on track, but if he doesn't change, then maybe my answer will. And I think that's really cool. Again, it just kind of goes into how they navigate these questions, because it's not about will you or will you not denounce him, and that will be the difference in whether we draft you or not. It's how you think about it, right? Like I saw someone say, maybe later down the line, you could use that as fuel to a guy, right? You answered this way, right? This is clearly how you think. Well, what do you think about this situation in a game, right? And you can apply it to so many different things. What about that question, Jesse? I actually think that's a really interesting question, because not only does it gauge a little bit, at least, about how you might get along with your teammates, how you'll behave around them, how you might react to coaching staff, but it also shows some leadership qualities, I think, as well. Like, trying to defend your guys, but also letting them know that, it's probably not going to be tolerated long term. I think that's a really interesting question to ask, and maybe a more interesting answer from Michael Hage, as I'll bring up his stats for everyone to take a look at.
Absolutely. A great question, and I definitely agree with the answer in a lot of ways. It's like you want to try and resolve things first, whether it's like your little brother, your little sister. Obviously, it's nice to kind of speak to that before going to the parents, right? So you have to understand where Hage is kind of coming from, like with this answer, right? And saying, well, maybe this gives me an opportunity where maybe I can speak with them kind of one-on-one first. And then maybe if it doesn't work, then you kind of see where it needs to go. Because obviously you do care about winning. There's a flip side of that as well. But you do want to try and work with people first, right? I think that that's so important. So I think that these are great questions, though, that are being asked. We're seeing he's being referred to as the doctor, Dr. David Scott, right now with the Montreal Canadiens, right? He's just standing out. And what's interesting is they're not just using like one person all the time. So the interview is really by committee. It's sometimes it's Bob Robb, Kent is there sometimes, Jeff, right? But they're really relying on their staff to really do this as a team, right? And I think that there's a lot of interesting takeaways. And for the reasons that you very astutely put, it's like, what's their reasoning behind it? Because that's almost the most telling thing about it, right? But obviously, like, I think they did so well last year, even though we know it was a little bit wild at certain points, a lot of excitement in the room there. But they really selected, I think, a really great group of players, like getting not only positions that we need, but then being able to get like character at the same time. That's not an easy balance to be able to do. So I'm super impressed by the work so far.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff, a lot of really intriguing prospects, and even some underrated guys like we just saw with the Spellacy, right? Like a guy that just didn't have that much point production in the OHL, but you can see the talent that could maybe come through, right? There's a lot of very interesting stuff there. But yeah, it's some crazy stuff, and we already talked about the stare down from Sacha Boisvert. That was a wild thing. That one went pretty popular on Twitter, on Reddit, everywhere around about how the Habs were treating him. And we've heard a lot of interesting questions from various teams, like the Utah unknown team name at this point, asking players what their Uber passenger rating was. There was other questions about World War II that apparently weren't the Habs. So there's a lot of interesting stuff. But Jesse, I'm going to take a break and take a look through the chat because, we love looking through the chat. And I wanted to remind you guys, we answer channel members in priority and also donations. So if you want to skip the line and get to your message first, that's what you got to do. But I'm going to do my best to read everything that's there if I can, but there's a lot of stuff. So we're going to start at the top saying, hey all, ahoy all from Planko, loyal viewer. Thank you so much for being back, and all the channel members that are here, like Ikram as well. Ikram, by the way, guys. Ikram, I know I told Jesse about your hot take. Ikram, guys, has a hot take that, do I still have the picture? Oh, I don't think I do. Not on this one. Actually, one second. Let me just see if I have it here. Sorry, this is the solo view, Jesse, but I'm just showing the people in the chat what Ikram said. He said that Logan Mailloux is going to play on penalty kill 1 this season. So that's the hot take from Ikram. Maybe I'll have another one today, but we got a little running bet with Ikram going on the channel, so it'll be very interesting to follow whether that comes true throughout the season. We got Jay saying good evening. I think I already read that for you, Jay. But yeah, thank you so much for everyone being in here. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about trades and stuff, but I see Ikram also say this, Jesse, and maybe we'll take some attention to this before we move on. He said he's calling, this is maybe his hot take of the day, calling Berkeley Kaiden pick at 5 if Demidov and Lindstrom are not available. Now, we'll get into that debate a little bit later. Let's have a little talk about Berkeley Kaiden, just briefly, because Kaiden is one of those guys that, my gosh, Jesse, just pure skill-wise, I think you can put him up there, maybe not quite in that top tier of like a Celebrini, of a Demidov, but I think that Kaiden is one of the best pure skill guys in this entire draft, despite his slight frame. He has the potential to be like a more than point per game scorer in the NHL if things come together. There's some concern about his size. He's like just under 5'11", 170 pounds. He's not huge. Will he be able to step up at the next level? What are your thoughts on Berkeley as a potential pick? Because I really like his upside, but I can see the concerns with him.
Definitely. Obviously we need a forward, so it is really tempting if we're there at 5th, if both Demidov and Lindstrom, we're going to get into that some more later. Seems like, there's some rumors they might be there, but let's say they're not for whatever reason. It's tempting because this guy obviously is dynamic offensively. Very, very good. The way he's just able to get around the ice, I think that's one of the things that stands out. We know in today's NHL, like having great mobility, like, yeah, he's going to score goals in the NHL, going to be a very effective player. And, you can't discount these guys around, within that top 10, even those later ones. There's a lot of players that end up being absolutely phenomenal. So we're definitely not going to slight Berkeley in any type of way whatsoever, right? We did have a conversation yesterday, though. It's like the Habs may be leaning, let's say, the plan B, C, that both Lindstrom and Demidov are taken, that they're probably going to try, from what we're hearing anyway, and we know that there's lots of smoke and mirrors at this time of year, but it's that they're probably going to go with the best player available in that case, that being, maybe a defenseman at that point in time, knowing how rich, this class is in D-men, right? And I think there is a solid point to be made about that really just securing our defense, having like that puck moving defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get into like some amazing options, but I mean, this draft is just unreal for D-men. So I think maybe it'd be best to still, just get the best player, and then you might have to wait a little bit for a trade, but do that if you still want to kind of cash in on that top 6, top line sort of player you expect to get in that type of trade, right? But I mean, Berkeley, just watch the tape on him, the highlights, like this guy's amazing to watch. That's for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't be upset with it. There's very few people I would be upset with. But Jesse, we got to get to some super chats here. We're seeing some trade rumors in there. Blanco got something I'll get to in a second. And then he gave his answers to, he gave at least one of the answers to those questions from the Habs interviewers. But the first thing is another super chat from Memphis Sander. Memphis, you've been in a number of streams. Thank you so much for stopping by. And thank you very much for the $5. Everyone leave a like on Memphis's comment. And while you're there, leave a like on the stream. We got 175 of you in here. If we can get that like number up to 50, I would love it. At least 50. I know you guys can get there. But he asked this, Jesse. Well, not even a question. He says, Lindstrom this, Demidov that. We're taking a goalie at 5th overall. You know what? This is people are starting to put their hot takes into the stream, and I can't blame them. It's fun to speculate this kind of thing. I don't know where the highest goalie is in this draft, honestly. I have not even looked. You know what, Jesse? I'm just going to go take a look at goalie prospects, NHL 2024. Let's just see. NHL 2024 draft prospect rankings from NHL.com. North American goalies. I mean, there's not a whole lot here. We got Mikhail Yegorov. We got international goalies. We got Emil Vinny. So I don't know where you put these guys. I don't know where they actually rank in the actual draft. I'm going to go have a take a look here. Top 10 worldwide 2024 goalies. Christian Kirsch, Noah Erliden, Nicholas Kemp. There's a lot of guys. The lists seem to be all over the place. So, you know what? I think that's safe to say no. Jesse, quick thoughts. Goalie or no at number 5?
A little bit spicy, right? I don't know. I think I know the Habs know what they need, right? And I got confidence in our boy Jacob Fowler. I don't know. For me, that boy's got number 1 written all over him.
I think so too. Memphis actually saying maybe 1 second round goalie. Maybe you reach a little bit. And you just, because you can never have too many goalie prospects. Like imagine having a lot of good ones. So that's a very interesting point there. Blanco says we know there's going to be some changes after the playoffs. So what about Kakko to the Habs? Save it for trade stock. Yeah, I think we'll get into some trade stock maybe a little bit later, Jesse, with all the rumors, some Zegras stuff, and the Anaheim Ducks asking price and stuff. So we might save that for later. Remind me, Blanco, when we get to that. But I'm not opposed to taking on Kakko, provided the price isn't too high. I'm not sold on paying any kind of premium for him just because there is some skepticism around his offense. But yeah, well, I think we'll say that. Denis says he answered one. So I'm guessing that was the Michael Hage question. Denis says, I advised him before that he's responsible for his action and don't count on me to lie for him. And I think that's a very reasonable answer too. That's an answer that really exudes leadership. Denis Holger is now the leader. He's the captain of the chat for today with that answer. He already got the C next to his name. It's purple. No one else to see is purple. Denis been a member for a while, guys. So Denis, you get honorary captaincy for the chat there today. I see some more people. I see For You. Hey, For You, welcome back. He said, hey, Habs Digest and Habs fans. If we can get Demidov, I will be so happy. Starts in Laval with Beck and Meshar for year 1, then the NHL. I think Demidov at least has 1 more year left in Russia, right, Jesse? And they're going to try to keep him there, I'm sure. But I think as soon as Demidov is eligible, I think you stick him on the Habs right away if you can. Just see that skill at the NHL level. Get him working with the skills development coaches. It's worked for Slafkovsky, and it's worked for someone like a Joshua Waugh. I don't see why it wouldn't work for Demidov.
For sure. Yeah, let him cook over there. That's the one thing that's missing. The one knock on him right now is the level of competition. For me, I'm honestly not too worried about that at all. Like, I think that he can be on there on a level of Celebrini if we're looking kind of 5-10 years down the road. Just that dynamic of a player, right, in his own right. But really bringing a full game, I think, like Celebrini, I feel like in a lot of ways, the more I'm watching tape on Demidov, the more you got to feel like this guy slept on, right, in a lot of ways, right? But yeah, no, he's going to be ready once he gets over here.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be really interesting to watch. But we'll get into him a bit later, guys. We got a lot of stuff coming up today. Actually, that might be the next topic. But I say Ikram saying next Carey Price. He said Cayden definitely supersedes Farrell and Meshar in skill already. I'm happy with Farrell and Meshar's progress, but I genuinely don't think that either of them will crack the top 6 ever. Honestly, Farrell, I don't want to say I've given up. I'm just like, the worries, the concerns of him coming out of the NCAA all came true. Like he looks solid. His skating is okay, but he's small. He can't really get his chances generated at the level we'd like. Meshar, I think, is a bit more of a wild card just because he's shown more flashes to me than, even though Sean Farrell was dominant in the NCAA, his year at Laval was not great. Meshar has shown flashes, especially of being a phenomenal playmaker. Look at the Kitchener Rangers in the playoffs. I don't think he projects the top 6 either. But I don't think that's a bad thing. Like a late first round pick, if you can get a serviceable NHLer out of that, I think that could be good. And I certainly think that's within the cards for Meshar, though I do think he'll need to develop a bit. Jesse, I mean, I don't know. Have you thrown the book out on Farrell or Meshar yet? Because I'm kind of not so sold on Farrell, but I think Meshar, like under the right circumstances, could definitely be a serviceable guy for Montreal.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, right, for Farrell, but definitely Meshar, obviously, he still definitely has a chance. We're talking about, so many players just get discounted so early on. And I feel like this is a player we're really going to need to be patient because obviously with the size for him to be successful at the next level, like his skill is going to need to take over. And that'll be the difference, just be so dynamic in the offensive zone where the size doesn't matter. But he really has that capability where he can either really surprise us or the size, I feel, is going to be too much of an issue. But honestly, we're going to need to be really patient, right? Like we're seeing like how much hate was even like Lafreniere getting as of last year, right? And then
even this year,
it's you gotta be paid. Exactly, right? Like, and I think it's just great examples of he was one of the best playoff performers for the New York Rangers when it really matters, right? It's just these great reminders that all the time we have to be patient. I know, like with Conco too, right? Like it's so easy to say like, oh, okay, he's never going to be any good, right? But like, we still need to give a lot of time. The New York Rangers are stacked. Yes, to probably get a true chance in a top 6 role, which he's actually suited. And I would argue definitely drafted to play in, right? To really kind of judge what type of player he is full in and full out. So yeah, with these young guys, Meshar, I still honestly have a lot of hope that this could be a very good player.
Yeah, I think he could be. It all depends on the development, and you never really know, especially with what could end up being a bit of a logjam with a bunch of young players. So hoping you see someone come out of the ashes and rise above the rest. It could be Beck. It kind of already is. Well, there'll be a lot of stuff to keep track of, but we got to get back to the chat. There's a lot of stuff. Jay Falador saying, for me, Tisha Ginla's my pick at 5. Hey, the Habs did wine and dine him, I suppose. So we'll see what goes on there. I don't really see him going at 5. I still think he's going to Calgary at number 9. Well, if not there, I think he might actually go a bit earlier. Wouldn't surprise me to see Utah take him, even though it doesn't make a ton of sense. They like to do weird things, so why not? Akram said, we've drafted a lot of bottom tier depth for a while. That's why I think we need offensive talent, and it's next to impossible if the Habs drafted defensemen. True. I think there's other ways to get top-end talent. It's hard, but I think it's possible. You just got to get best player available, because the last thing you want to do is pass on a defenseman just because you didn't need him, and then that defenseman ends up being way better than your need at that time. But we'll have to see. Denis says, I don't draft a player if he's not 100% healthy. Well, there's definitely concerns with Caden Lindstrom, and Demidov has an injury right now as well. We'll see. He says, sorry for my English. Right? Don't worry about it, Denis. My goodness. We can understand everything. You're all good. You can feel free to write in English and French. That goes for everyone in there. We'll be able to read it. No problem. We're both bilingual. I wanted to say hi to Joel's Matrix. Welcome back, Joel. You've been here a lot. For you, still going in here saying he thinks Utah will take Parekh. They'll finally get that franchise cornerstone offensive defenseman. That makes a lot of sense too. But I think it's time to before we get into this subject, Jesse, our number 1 fan is back. It's been a little while, but Angie is back, guys. You guys all know Angie if you're a frequenter to the stream, saying hi there. You are awesome, guys. So proud of the commitment to your followers every Monday evening. Well, those are some incredibly kind words. Guys, leave a like on our chat. You guys are already doing it. Thank you so much, Angie. Like, it's so appreciated to see you every single time you're here. You and every single other person that decides to show up, spend time out of their Monday. We got over 250 people in here now, spending time with us, just chatting about the Montreal Canadiens. So it seriously means the world to see you guys here. We got some hype from people in the chat. Planko with that Slafzilla emoji. Yeah, guys, and if you're a channel member, don't forget, not only do you get priority messages, you get some wonderful emojis that I'm going to send there in the chat right now, including Slafzilla, including Kirby, including Brad Marchand being sad. There's a lot of great stuff. But Jesse, I think it's time to get into some of this Demidov stuff. What do you think?
I'm here for it.
Let's do it. All right, well, let's start with this. So we got some tweets today. One from Cam Robinson. If you don't know Cam Robinson, he's one of the heads. I think he might be the head of the guys over there at Elite Prospects. So very tuned in to a lot of prospects, very tuned into the draft. He said this, Ivan Demidov talk. This was on Twitter today. I've spoken to nearly a dozen teams about the Russian winger. To a person, everyone acknowledges he has some of the highest potential in the class. but no single team indicated that they would feel secure in taking him with a top 2, 3, or even top 5 pick. He's a slider candidate for sure, and he went on to say this, that the concerns aren't entirely due to his birth certificate. There are some concerns about that, which is always interesting to follow, I gotta say. But he's basically been unchallenged for 2 years. No pro action, no international action. He's a bit of a slider winger, like not a huge guy, right? He's about bang on average, I think, maybe even a little bit underweight. Dynamic, but there's risk attached. Now, when it comes to Demidov, Jesse, not only was it Cam Robinson talking about this, I think I have this already up here. We'll take a look here. Grant McCagg was talking about it too. He said on Twitter today that I have a strange feeling that Demidov will drop to the Canadiens at 5 and they will snap him up. And in another tweet, he said there are plenty in the scouting world who think Levshunov is going to Chicago and Salayev to Anaheim. Columbus may opt for Seneca or Lindstrom. So we got on the one hand people saying a lot of teams might not even take Demidov top 5 if they had a pick there. On the other hand, we have Grant saying, now this is just his feeling, which is, it is what it is, but Grant is obviously pretty tuned into the prospect world. It is what it is. He's had some solid predictions when it comes to the draft before. Him saying that, the Habs could very well take Demidov. Demidov could fall to him. There's a lot of rumblings, Jesse, not just from here, not just from Twitter, that Levshunov's going to go number 2, that Columbus, even if they do take a forward, might take someone like a Lindstrom. It's seemingly more and more possible, but over the last 2 days, we're seeing a lot of concerning updates about Demidov. Are these worrying you at all? Because I can't lie, it's starting to hit my psyche. Maybe I'm being too reactionary, but I'm just I'm starting to Google everything frantically, right? Connecting the web behind me.
Honestly, I'm here for it. I'm not worried. I think that him sliding down other people's rankings is just going to be to our benefit. I don't get why this guy would slide, right? If the Habs were able to get Ivan Demidov, this would be an absolute game changer for the Montreal Canadiens organization. Make no doubt about it. And believe me, we're going back on the pod. We're saying Lindstrom, Demidov. I'm still kind of torn on it, as I'm sure Habs management is as well. There's some in one camp, that would prefer Ivan. There's others that probably prefer Cayden, right? But I think if we're either able to get either of them where that really comes to us, this is absolutely amazing, right? And, that he definitely was right to be pumping Slafkovsky's tires, last year. He definitely, so it's interesting here, but he's not the only one, right, that is, I'm seeing a lot of mocks lately, Josh. I don't know if you've seen this as well, where Demidov is going at number 5, right? He's not the only one seeing this. And for me, even though I think that it might be foolish for other teams to pass, it's I get that their needs, right? And obviously, Salayev kind of jumping in, that's what would really help Demidov coming to us at 5th. But you look at Anton Salayev, 6'7", 211 11 pounds,
211 feet tall. He's the new Godzilla. Anton
next he's gonna battle Slavzilla in the next,
yeah.
But anyways, at 18 years old, this guy's gonna be an absolute beast. If you want somebody to compete in the playoffs when it really matters, you probably do really well by drafting Anton Salayev, 3rd overall. That seems like a really solid selection. So this is where it happens, but the fact that now that a lot of people are saying, we're hearing from a couple different sources, maybe Lindstrom getting drafted before Demidov, this is a recent development, right? We haven't seen this as much. Obviously, we want to know, okay, is it, is his injuries, what is really kind of beyond this? Because for me, just looking at the player, skill-wise, talent-wise, the way that he competes, it just doesn't quite make sense.
It's weird, right? As you approach the draft, more and more questions come out. Oh my gosh, it's so crazy. It always happens. It's unreal stuff. I'm excited to keep following this. We're going to get into this a little more, but I wanted to read some chats because we have so many chats here, Jesse. We got a lot of channel members in the chat too. We got Ikram saying it's mostly about the timeline. I've thought about the path Kent Hughes is trying to take. He's built the back end, and we just need some of these guys to develop. Just watch Kent work this offseason. I think we're going to see a lot of work this offseason. I think we're going to see Kent do quite a bit of cooking this offseason for sure. The team will be completely different by training camp. Matt, welcome back to the chat. Thank you so much for being here. Another long-time channel member. Can I hover over and see how long? I don't think I can, not here. But anyway, thank you, Matt, for being here and for being in the chat. So have you either of you been to a Habs game in person? Yeah, I've been to 2. I think one this season, one the season before. Jesse, you've been in person or no to a Habs game?
I've lived in Montreal. I've been there for a practice, and it was it was a sellout, the most lit practice you could ever imagine, right? It was an amazing experience. So in the Bell Center once, but definitely going to be changing that in the near future.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, no, it's amazing. I went to a Laval Rocket game this year too. My gosh, the atmosphere in there, I don't know what it is with the sound, but I think so loud, which is amazing. Like the Laval Rocket lost as they were going, trying to make that playoff push, but it was fun to watch Reinbacher, and the crowd was unbelievable at that game. I will say though, the logistics to getting people in the building suck. The lines to get into the Place Belle, so long. It is crazy. Anyway, Ikram saying, the more I hear about Demidov, it really feels like the Habs aren't going to take him. If Kent Hughes drafts Demidov, it'll be the riskiest pick he's made. David Reinbacher was the safe pick. I think there's a bit of safety involved in this, but I think the Habs, I get that there's risk, but also his talent is his talent. And I think that is going to weigh heavily on the Habs brass, right? When they're looking at who to take. Do you think Kent Hughes would be more inclined to take the safe pick, Jesse? I suppose he did it with Reinbacher, but guys, it's not like Slafkovsky was the safe pick going into that draft either. I mean, that was definitely a bit of a risk. So I feel like there's other factors. And I think if they can get a chance to meet him when he's in that draft event in Florida, I believe next week, then I think that'll change a lot of things too.
What I love about our Habs management is they don't really care what other people think. They have the confidence to make their own decisions, knowing it's them that's making these decisions. It's them that's entrusted with this organization to bring them, down the path that really is the best for them in the future, right? So I think honestly that, when you're kind of selecting this type of player, obviously we know like a Slafkovsky can work, right? It's not like you can just do that recipe every time. Obviously, the Canadiens have failed trying to just draft 4 size sometimes in the past, right? But obviously that is a great mold to have, right? But sometimes for me, it's like, you don't want to have players that are too similar, right? At least not on the same lines, because you kind of knock. You want to have a complementary. Like power forwards are great to have, right? But you can't just have a team of power forwards. You can't just have a team of snipers. You need to take your snipers, your power forwards, your D, put that your grinders. You put that together. That's how you really make a solid team, right? So when I look at, Ivan Demidov, like I've said, I'm very big on Lindstrom on the pod. I'm going back and forth between it. You'll have my full prediction on the draft day stream of who I would really prefer, right? But obviously there's huge cons for both, pros and cons for both. But it's like, for me, it's like Ivan Demidov, that profile, it's missing on the Habs. We don't have exactly that. And I think you really need a player like that. As long as the Habs feel he can compete in the playoffs when it matters most. If you're feeling like that, then it's a no-brainer, right? That's the one thing, but it's so hard to know. And maybe that's why sliding a little bit more. It's like they don't have access to these players all the time, not able to see them. We see at June 18th, that's going to be a big day for the Habs where they're going to be able to meet with Demidov, see him at the combine, get some more info, right? So all this information, as they continue to gather, it will be very important.
It definitely will. There's going to be a ton of stuff going down. I wanted to read a trade proposal, not related to this though, from Réjean Dumouchel, and Réjean is always in the comment section. I see him quite a lot. He asked Jesse, 10e choix de New Jersey contre Matheson. Le faites-vous? I think I think you can get more for Matheson. Am I crazy? Like the 10th overall pick, I think you can get more. Like I think Matheson on a contender is maybe not, I don't know, but I think you can squeeze a little more out of him, because I think Matheson's the kind of guy that you stick on your second pairing as a contender at his cap hit and you are thrilled. You are so thrilled. He can be a power play quarterback. He can go give you probably 50 points as a second pairing defenseman while not having to play like the top defensive matchups. I think a team looking for a defenseman like that could very well pay a little bit more than that. So while I think that's not terrible in a vacuum, I think you might as well hold on to Matheson even if New Jersey offers that. Well, what are your thoughts quickly on that, Jesse, before we move on to some other stuff?
If we had some more veteran defensemen that I felt would be part of the Montreal Canadiens' future, I'd probably pass on that. It's kind of predicated not so much on the trade itself, but rather the makeup of the team as it is, just because like we're so young on our back end to kind of begin with. And believe me, like, I like Matheson, right? But there's been some issues of his game that obviously as Habs fans, we haven't always been the biggest on. I think we need to give him a little bit longer of a runway to really get like a true feel of what kind of player that he is. Is he going to pass the slap this year? Is he going to be able to clean up some of those turnovers a little bit? Like we want to see that. Like, honestly, I'm not going to lie, Réjean, like I've thought about it a little bit just because it's like, when I look at Slafkovsky, one of the best players on your team, you can't have your quarterback on the PP not passing to one of your most effective players, right? Like that's just not a good recipe. I think that the Habs could have had a lot more success by getting Slaf involved early on in the power play and letting him play make, right? Getting his touches early on there, right? So I think that Matheson brings a lot. I think he's a big fan of, or I think that Kent Hughes rather is a big fan of his. So I think that trade kind of makes it a little bit difficult. You can get an amazing player though at number 10, right? So while it's tempting, just because we got so many young guys, I think you hold on to him for right now. But great question.
I think there's a world where the Habs have two guys in their own personal top five, one that they pick at 5 and one that they'd probably be able to get at 10, right? Whether it's a tease or whoever it may be, right? So I think it could be really interesting to follow. But I think that's a good transition into some trade talk. Now, not a ton, but I wanted to open up with Planko, your question earlier about Kaapo Kakko. I wanted to just do a quick note on Kaapo Kakko, Jesse. What are your thoughts on him as a player and his development? Because to me, it's like, every year you're like, my gosh, he could be good. On Cap Friendly, he's rated as like a third liner. Of course, his contract is up. I believe he's a restricted, he's an arbitration eligible, restricted free agent. What was his point production this year? 19 points in 61 games with 2 points in 15 playoff games. He's just one of those guys that has all the tools, right? And could be good. He has a rocket of a shot, just not putting it together. And I think we're starting to get to that point where we're running out of time to take on guys like that. While it could work, I think the Habs are going to start building up some really talented players. They're going to grab one from another team here or there, maybe trade. They're going to draft a couple guys. I feel like if you do that, you have to do it this offseason, but I feel like the price that New York's going to ask for Kaapo Kakko is a bit too much. We're going to get into him, and I want to get into Zegras after, but just quick thoughts on Kakko before we do.
Yeah, that's it. If we didn't already have some reclamation projects, I would pass on him. Not just because I don't think that he'll ever be a good player in the NHL. I think that there still is very much capability for him to be so. But it's more since you don't want to make your team like kind of building them like the replacements, right? Where like every guy is kind of some reclamation project. Like you do need just that full on skill that you can really just benchmark that you know is going to be there year in, year out, and everything else like that. So I feel like that's important. As this team kind of develops, you'll see they'll kind of start going for the safer plays because they really know, okay, we want to compete. We kind of need to bring in players that we know are really going to be filling the back of the net. That being said, is like Kakko has scored close to 20 goals already in the NHL, and that's not nothing. Like that's pretty solid production still for being a young player. So I still definitely think that he could do something in the NHL. Probably just not with the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. Well, we had a big dip in viewers there. I don't know if let me know, guys, if something glitched on the stream, because there was a point there where we lost about, I think, 60 or 70. I hope everything's all good. But anyway, I think Kakko is an interesting case because in an ideal world, you stick him on the second line in Montreal, you see what he can do. Because like some people are saying, he's on a stacked New York Rangers team that has a ton of top end talent. So where are you going to put him, right? You can't really put him on your top power play. To be fair, I don't think he would make the top power play in Montreal either. I think he'd be second power play kind of guy. And then, like, you want to play him with a lot of really good players. And so, I've seen some people say maybe you play Lindstrom with Kirby Dach. Why, if you get Kakko, why not play Kakko with Kirby Dach? I actually think that could be a really fun duo. I think if the right price is there, you could do it. I'm not sold, but hey, you never know what Kent Hughes might do, and you never know what his contract might cost, restricted free agent. We'll have to wait and see. Quick note on Zegras, Jesse. It seems like Anaheim wants one of Guhle or Reinbacher for him. And my gosh, not only me, but I've seen a lot of people online talk about, this is bringing me back to the Jonathan Drouin trade, right? And when we're looking back at that, how bad did that ever look, right? Like the Ryan McDonagh trade, and of course, that was a different one, but the Mikhail Sergachev trade for Jonathan Drouin, you get like a 22, 23-year-old guy who you're projecting to get point per game over the long term, but you're trading like one of your blue chip prospect defensemen for them. And it looks so similar on the Zegras front. I know you're not sold on Zegras anyway, but to hear that that's the price for him, I'm kind of glad to not hear the Habs so much talking with the Ducks about that now. We heard Kent Hughes kind of reached out, and I'm sure Pat Verbeek was like, give me Guhle or Reinbacher, and Kent Hughes probably said no. I feel like we'd hear more stuff was going there, but thoughts on that? I mean, to me, it just feels like Drouin 2.0. Yeah, Zegras could be amazing. He could fill a big hole that the Habs need, but I'm not trading one of those two guys for him.
Definitely not. And I actually doubt, I think as a general manager of the Montreal Canadiens, you have a duty to at least check and see what the price is. But I doubt how serious Kent Hughes was ever about this trade, just because we know how much he values character and everything. It just seems so contradictory just to how he's been making his decisions. That's the whole modus operandi for the Montreal Canadiens of late, right? And obviously, we need skill, but I think there's definitely other ways to go around it. Now, you hope that things can kind of work out for Trevor and everything else like that. I'm just not going to lie. Some of those kind of polls from the NHL players where he's ranked as that's the one award you never want to win as being most overrated. It's almost like a little bit harsh that they even have those kind of polls where, they're asking those type of questions, right? Where that's his public. And now Trevor Zegras has to know this is how his peers really feel about him, right? Like if there's one people that really know what's going on in the NHL, it's the players, right? So for me, that's a huge red flag. And for that reason, I'd say a hard no.
Yeah, hard no. I would completely agree. I see someone asking if Kakko is right or left wing. He's a right wing. He shoots left, but he's a right wing. So anyway, yeah, you can put him there with Dach, and you can figure some things out, right? A lot of these guys' wings are interchangeable, though. I will say I think Kakko is probably more of a right wing just by the way he plays. He likes being on his one-time side, right? He's got a rocket of a shot there as well. We got some interesting things here. Someone said Devils want a goalie. Matheson for the test isn't even a discussion. Why don't you trade him David Savard? He's a Vezina candidate, right? With some of the saves he made this year. Why not David Savard for the 10th? I'd like that. Ikram saying, I agree we need players who are established as good players or someone with the potential to grow from the start. Can't have everyone be a reclamation project. He's right on board with you, Jesse. When to get Zegras, I would give Mailloux and the Jets first, and I'm still not sure. And yeah, there's no way Anaheim would do that. Because like, imagine you're the team that owns Zegras. Would you accept that? I wouldn't if I own Zegras, right? So just one of those situations where I don't think the prices are going to line up. Ikram saying, I heard rumors. You're going to need to source this, Ikram. This sounds ridiculous. These rumors are coming from Ikram's own handwritten notes app in his phone. Rumors of a 3-way trade with the Leafs that has us giving up Barron plus for Zegras, and Anaheim gets Marner. Thoughts on that? What do the Leafs get in this situation? Do they get Barron and some picks? The Leafs get Barron and some picks, or maybe another low prospect, and they give up Marner, and then the Ducks straight away Zegras. I mean, look, if that's what Montreal gives up to get Zegras, I'm kind of okay with Barron and some picks, Jesse. I mean, on that note, like, I know the culture is whatever. Like, if Zegras doesn't work out, though, you can just flip him. Another team would be willing to buy him for more than you get him for in that sense. But, hey, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that if we get Zegras for Barron and a couple picks?
The hot mess. I don't know if Toronto Maple Leafs are helping us out. I don't even know what the Leafs need anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I don't know. There's some issues in that locker room, right? But it's like, could they use kind of like an offensive, sort of kind of defenseman a little bit more other just right? Because they went so hard on just getting the defensive defenseman type of guys, but obviously, right? Like it's just, they never seem like they just go too much in one direction without kind of getting the balance that you really need there. But I don't know. I just, even with the price being low, I'm just a big reason why I love covering this team so much is just like the positivity, the good vibes and everything. That's why it's like, I love a player like Cole Eiserman, and we don't like to trash. We like to keep it positive, as you guys all know, on this channel and everything. But you hear the things sometimes, and it's sometimes like one player, right, can just change the locker room so much. So I don't know. Unfortunately, I think I probably have to pass on.
Yeah, that's for sure. But you know what else is positive, Jesse? A thumbs up. It's a sign of affirmation. And we have over 300 people in the stream and only 89 likes. Guys, you guys know that we love to get that number up. So if you want to click a button and see a number go up, what better place to do it than right here on the like button? I'd really appreciate if we could get that over 100, guys. We really appreciate everyone in here. Denise saying really great chat by your followers. Yeah, I mean, we always have fantastic chats, Jesse. Like, we have such intelligent chats in here. Now, this chat is subscriber only. So if you're watching right now and you're not in chat and you're wondering why you can't chat, all you got to do is hit subscribe to the channel. And anyone who's not subscribed and is watching this live stream, well, you're going to want to subscribe because we have daily content. We have weekly Habs live streams just like this every Monday. So why not subscribe, right? We have some of the best Habs content out there. We like to think for sure. Now, there's a lot of other great creators for sure, but hey, is what it is. Ikram said, let me find the link. I just found it with the Oilers too. No idea. Yeah, I'm still... One trade that I actually thought about with the Leafs, Jesse, is Nick Robertson for one of the Habs young defensemen. A guy that, even though he's super injury prone, has shown flashes of being a solid player at the NHL level. He's small though as well. The Habs probably wouldn't want to buy on him because he's so small, but it just seems like one of those things, like he's offensively gifted and the Leafs need a young defenseman. Might work, but I don't think that's going to happen either. It is. Ikram says, I was fooled. It wasn't the Habs, it was the Hurricanes. I don't know what I was seeing. Well, that's okay, Ikram, because it led to some really interesting discussion, I gotta say. So that was a bit of a fun one. Jesse, I think the final thing we're going to talk about in this stream is just one of the things Arber Basu said, and I wanted to talk about some of the potential guys. Like, we talk about Lindstrom versus Demidov. We talk about that all the time. Now, in the video yesterday, if you guys watched it, we're going to kind of talk about it again, but maybe in a little bit of a different detail and with some feedback from you guys live. So, no, that's not it. It was this one. Arber Basu in his recent article for The Athletic said, I think both Boyum and Parek would be considered at number 5 though it's difficult to handicap which one would be preferred. Now, both of these guys, Jesse, are very interesting. I saw so much love for Xavier Boyum in the comment section yesterday. Thank you guys for leaving so many comments on that video. It was really appreciated. As I'm also going to give a shout out to Planko, who donated another €2, who said, "Who don't like equals Leafs fans." Everyone like his comment, because if you don't like it, that means you're a Leafs fan. So go like Planko's comment right now. I only see 2. And I can guarantee you there's not 300 people in here that are Leafs fans. So I sure hope not. Otherwise, we got the complete wrong audience, Jesse. And he said, to click the like, sorry, I usually don't apologize. We are just so happy that you hit the like button. Thank you so much. When it comes to Boyum and Parekh is so interesting. I love his game. I think he's more of a boom or bust type of guy. Like, I feel like there's more of a chance for Parekh to not reach his potential than there is for a guy like Xavier Boyum. But they're both amazing. I think Boyum is that guy. He can be like a Hudson, but a bit bigger. I don't know if it was in the comment section here or someone else. It might have been in the comment section. But people saying, like, when they watched Team USA and, like, the World Juniors and stuff, and they watched, say, Boyum, it's like, you almost confuse him for Lane Hudson. Because he does so many similar things. His footwork, his skating is great, but he's a phenomenal puck mover. That kind of thing is never lost at the NHL level. That kind of thing is incredible, right? So, unbelievable stuff from Xavier Boyum, and I wanted to get your opinion. If you had to make a choice, my choice would have been Parekh if you asked me a few weeks ago. I've flipped. If the Habs aren't able to take Demidov or Lindstrom, or maybe they don't want to take Demidov due to concerns, and they want to take a defenseman, I think it's Xavier Boyum. He's the guy that I like the most. I would like to watch a bit more film on him before I solidly say I'm super confident, but I feel like I've watched enough to say that this guy seems very special. And before you answer, I just wanted to give a shout out to Denis Ranger. Long live to both of you. Thank you so much, Denis. 1 month as a hat trick tier member. Thank you so much with the purple badge. Unbelievable. Jesse, Boyum versus Parekh. What do you got?
Oh man, Boyum seems very solid, very stable. A little bit more of a playmaker in terms of his points. Yep. That's why I'm going for Parekh. I'm going for, I just want the offensive dynamite, right? Because this is the type of player, like with his skating, like he can take over a game, his goal scoring ability, right? Like that's just the game changer. Obviously, with defensemen, there's so much more involved than that. But if we're looking at just solid puck carrying defensemen, I just like, the dynamic nature that I see from Zane Parekh.
Yeah, you know what? That's so fun too. The 30 goals, like there's something about him, man. It just screams, it screams unbelievable. Speaking of unbelievable, we're going to interrupt this for a quick message from Denis Ranger. Denis, you are so generous. I can't begin to thank you enough for how nice it is to have you in the chat and how nice it is of you to donate so often. $20 more, Jesse, from Denis Ranger. Unbelievable. Thank you so much. I mean, like, you guys, the fans, are what make these streams what they are. Like, can't believe the support we get from you guys. So appreciative. Seriously. Every single one that comments in this live stream, in the videos, even leaves a like, even just watches for 10 seconds. It's just so appreciated. But I like your take about Zane Parekh. And that's kind of what sold me on him in the first place, right? Because when you look at Zane Parekh, you see a guy that's like unbelievably offensively gifted. People start saying Cale Makar. I don't think he's going to quite reach that tier, but he has that kind of game-breaking offensive potential as a defenseman. But again, when it comes to him, it's like, if that goal-scoring ability, now, I mean, like his skating and his ability to get to dangerous areas is not going to be lost necessarily at the NHL level, but it could be slower to grow. Whereas the Boyum, his outlet passes, right? His breakout passes, I should say. I watch a lot of basketball too. But his breakout passes and his ability to just kind of create smoothly with his skating as he kind of heads into the offensive zone. Parekh does that as well. But Boyum also does it pretty well while also being a bit of a better playmaker, right? Just a guy that seems to have a better feel for the game. And it's gonna, like, to me, it's so tough to say, Jesse. And I just have to imagine that a lot of this comes down to the interviews. Now, the Habs apparently really like both of them. And so I believe, did they have dinner? I think it was no dinner for Parekh, or maybe it was. I can't remember. But either way, they interviewed both of them. You just got to feel at this point that it'll come a lot down to how they answered in their interviews, how the Habs feel with them on a personal level and with the mental game. Because for both of these guys, that can be a barrier, especially for a guy like Parekh, right? If you don't have the right mindset and you just kind of coast off skill, I'm not saying that's what he's doing, because by all accounts, it's kind of not. But you never know how they answer, right? So if you even get the vibe that they're kind of like, I'm just super skilled, I'm this and this, and it's not that drive to get better, that can make a big difference in who you choose with your 5th overall pick.
That's what makes these decisions so tough, right? Because it's a team game. So you think, okay, well, a playmaker is going to have a better net effect on our team. But then again, like, it's the goals that are really the bread and butter of the
Mhm.
NHL. That's what makes the wheels go round, right? It's the goal scorers that are at the top of the league that,
True.
are really, the real game changers, right? So it's a tough thing to kind of figure. Like, you'd have to feel in a lot of ways. You wouldn't begrudge them for leaning towards Aziz Boone, just because I feel like so much of Habs philosophy, it's all about the whole, it's all about the collective, right? If you're maybe not just looking, because when we're saying this, it's not like which player do I like better, it's which player also fits into our system, right? And that's when it's so tricky when you're dealing with like best player available, but you also need to, know the team that you're dealing with, which I think is so important in many ways in life, right? Is you need to be on point like that. So it's definitely, it's a hard call, right? They have a lot to offer in a lot of ways. I'm okay with getting an offensive guy if it's that situation. Let's say again, Demidov and Lindstrom are both gone. It just makes the pick of Reinbacher look so much better, because it's, you can't just have a decor of the Hudson, Perek, or Bouillon types. Like, you need the Reinbacher type that's still good offensively, but is going to hold it down defensively. That's what's so nice about getting a player like this, is if you're put in a position like this year, you can pivot either way and you still kind of look good. It still fits the overall makeup of your team, which is so important.
Yeah, it's so fun to project the lineup a few years from now, and I mean we can put so many players in because there's legitimate like 7 or 8 guys they could pick at 5, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, right? Like any of the guys who could go top, like other than Celebrini, we don't know who people are gonna go. Like they could take Levshunov, they could take Dickinson, they could take Perek, they could take Boyum, and then you go to the forwards. Well, they got Lindstrom, McGinley, Seneca, Demidov, and then you're like, oh, that's 8 players. And you're like, oh, I wouldn't be upset with any of those guys, And there's probably more than like Salayev, right? There's so many great guys. Very, very interesting. I wanted to read through here. If Salayev is there, how do you pass in the 6'7" swift skating giant? That's his skating is the most impressive thing to me, Jesse. Yeah, he has weaknesses. He still has a good bit to work on before he's like, really playable for like long periods of ice time at the NHL level. He has some mistakes defensively still. His offensive game is not super tuned up. But for a guy that's 6'7", there's a lot of scouts saying they've never seen a guy skate like that at that size, at that age. It just, how, like, when you're 6'7" and 18 years old, you're still learning how to, like, people out there, like even me, right? You go from like whatever 5'10" to like 6 feet or something, right? It's not that much, but you get growing pains, and sometimes it takes some people who have bigger growth spurts, like 4 or 5 inch growth spurts, takes them a while to get used to their bodies. And like you see in the NBA, a lot of players finally getting used to it at they're like 19, 20, 21. It's like Salayev was born at 6'7" and has been skating his whole life like it. Jesse, I don't want to spend too much time on Salayev because there's another thing I wanted to get to there, but his skating is just so impressive to me, and to have that kind of guy who can just glide around the ice would be it's going to be a treat to see no matter which team he falls to.
Yeah, talk about skills that translate well to the NHL. Being massive and being able to skate like the wind. Like, I'm really not worried about this player projecting and the next level. And as we mentioned, like in the playoffs, we know when things get a little bit tighter, when less things are called, having a massive giant like that protecting the front of your net, I think that's going to be huge for whatever team ends up selecting him.
Like it's just like bringing Chara back to the league in a way. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be as good. There's a lot of stuff that needs to go right for that to happen, but that's the comparison no matter what when you get a guy that's super, super tall. Now, Chara was even a couple inches taller, but still, like there's a few other guys in this draft. There's a forward. Oh, I forget his last name. It starts with a D. Someone might be able to remind me in the chat, but I think he's a 6'7" forward. He's projected to go in the later rounds because his point production's not there, but he's very intriguing. I think he had a better second half to the year. If someone knows, I'd love for you guys to leave me in the chat. His name starts with a D, and he's like 6'7". I could Google it. I'm not going to do that. I'd love for you guys to let me know. We got another message from Memphis, Jesse, though. It's going to, just a little transition, maybe. Just one little final thing before we end it off. By the way, guys, if you want to send your messages now, if you're a channel member, or if you want to send a last-minute donation to guarantee your message gets read before we close this off, we're going to go for another probably 5 or 10 minutes, so not too much longer. Just giving you the heads up now. But Memphis says this, Jesse, and I think it's an interesting part. It's just a little discussion about the actual Habs team that exists right now, and it's not something we talk about a lot this time of year because, well, that's not the exciting stuff the draft is. But this is a great situation to do it, right? We're just doing a sort of a live podcast. Why not do it? Memphis says, I feel like nobody mentioned Cole Caufield having a -4 this season compared to most others. I know it's a weird stat, but I still think it shows something. Plus-minus is very interesting. You have to know how to apply it, right? You have to compare it to other people in other situations. Like, you can't just use it in a vacuum. With that said, I think your analysis could be quite right. Like, then when you look at the Habs this season, you look at some of their other top guys. Now, obviously, the guys who play the most on the Habs are going to face the toughest competition. Their top line, Slafkovsky, Suzuki, and Caufield, is going to play the best other forwards, just like their top defensemen, Matheson and Guhle, whatever, are going to play against other top defensemen and top forwards. So they're going to naturally, on a bad team, their plus minus might be affected a bit, but you got to know how to adjust for it. But when you look at the list, Jesse, the worst plus minus on the team this year was a tie between Brendan Gallagher and Mike Matheson, each at a minus 24. Okay, fair enough. I mean, Galley's defensive game is starting to decline a bit. Matheson, you guys can sound off on that if you want, whatever. Then it's Slafkovsky at minus 19, then Anderson at minus 18, Suzuki minus 14. And then you got a few other guys. And then, but like, when you have Suzuki at minus 14, Slafkovsky at minus 19, but Cole Caufield at minus 4, it kind of does paint a very interesting picture, because not only has Caufield's playmaking really taken a step up this year, Jesse, his defense has too. When you look at the advanced metrics for Montreal, we talked about it a bit during the season, but I remember looking actually recently at Money Puck. I didn't know this question was coming up, but I was looking at Money Puck a couple weeks ago. And Cole Caufield's defensive metrics, like the goaltender save percentage when Caufield's on the ice, is one of the best on the team. So not only is Caufield playmaking more and he's shooting more, or, well, you know, even though he's not scoring as many goals is what I should say, his play, whether it's offensively and defensively, is really helping the Habs. So I think his playmaking offensively is adding another level of, like, it's a little more dynamic now, you know, maybe allowing the Habs to have more time of control in the offensive zone. But we've also seen, Jesse, his defensive game has been amazing, some stick checks, stuff like that. So when you compare his plus minus to a guy like Suzuki or Slafkovsky that he spent basically the whole year playing on a line with, I think it is very, very impressive.
It is very impressive and also interesting, right? Because, you know, the one knock on him is his size, and okay, you know, other top lines will be able to take advantage of him from that. But it's like, these actual, like, this is something we talked about the whole year, that he was actually getting very good defensive numbers. And the reason for that is, like, he's a little bit smaller, but the key to his game is the forecheck. Like, he gets in the way in the offensive zone. He's able to really get where these passing lanes are, get his stick right. It's really great positioning that is allowing him to play such great team defense, which is really what it's all about. But he's paid attention to all these details, and that was one of the most important things for the Montreal Canadiens staff this year, is how do we take Cole from not just being a sniper but being an all-around, you know, player, right? Which almost seems like an impossible task when you have somebody that's just been a sniper the whole life, right? To then kind of change the mold of their game, their DNA, right? But he's bought in. He knows that it's about the team game, and that's what's so impressive about him, right? And I know, like, Cole Caufield had a good year last year. It's just, we know that he's capable of even more. Mm-hmm. And I've been thinking, Josh, I'm not going to lie, like, over the last couple of days, I remember that Cole Caufield in the Habs run in the playoffs, you know, during COVID, that lockout. Like, remember when he made that play where he chipped it off the boards and then he chased it down with that beautiful fit? Like, that's the Cole Caufield that I want to see next year. Electric, dynamic, ready to go, shooting from everywhere. I don't care. Just shoot it. You know, that's what he does, right? And then also with just this all-around game, we see his assist totals went up like crazy. Like, he's just starting to become so much more of a threat. And I think that this player is really going to blossom. But next year is going to be huge for Cole Caufield.
It's going to be amazing. I think Braden McNabb still has nightmares about that play, Jesse. And of course, Robin Leonard, you know, everyone remembering Robin Leonard, yeah, was it Leonard? Oh my goodness, I can't remember the names. But yeah, anyway, the Vegas goalie saying, "Oh, Caufield only shoots one way." Like, what? I feel like I got the name wrong. I feel like I'm losing my mind. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Still, I want to see that from Caufield so bad, because if his shot comes back, Jesse, and his playmaking defense stays up, unbelievable stuff. I wanted to comment. Etienne says Caufield at -4 means he's not on the ice during the penalty kill. As many people in the chat talked about, penalty kill does not count towards your plus. You get a plus if you score a shorthanded goal. You don't get a minus when you get scored against. And I believe it's the same for power play. If you score on the power play, I'm pretty sure you don't get a plus for that. So anyway, it's just a little note there. So that's not what it means. It's still mostly 5v5 stuff, right? So very, very cool. Awesome job, Josh and Jesse. Keep it up. Thank you so much. What will happen to Cap Friendly? Does someone know? It's going to go dark July 4th or 5th. Washington Capitals bought it up. There are some other websites. Puckpedia is probably what I'm going to use from now on. So if you guys wanted an alternative, go check out Puckpedia. Cap Friendly is still going to be up for the next few weeks heading into the draft and just after, but very, very sad. Yeah, Robin Leonard, so I wasn't crazy. And Jesse, someone told me the guy's name. It's Dean Letourneau. That's the guy. Thank you so much to PK. What a great name, talking about the subject we're on. Dean Letourneau. I'm just going to bring up his stats real quick before we end this off, because I knew I needed to get him up. So Dean Letourneau, let me just go take a look here. Let me scroll down. Of course, he played, he's committed to Boston College. He played 2 games for the Sioux Falls Stampede, but he played at St. Andrews College, which is an under 18 AAA. So it's like not your typical, sort of like typical draft guy, but it is what it is. He's ranked between, I see him as high as 20, or sorry, that's among North American skaters. So I see him 30 is the highest that I see here by Daily Faceoff, and Recruit Scouting has him all the way down at 63. So seems like he's probably going to be a second round pick by all accounts here. But the thing is, he is huge. He's 6'7", 209 pounds. And in that AAA, even though it's AAA, and look, I know under 18 AAA, when you're 6'7", you're going to dominate, but 61 goals, 66 assists in 56 games. So 61 goals in 56 games is nothing to scoff at. I think he's such an interesting prospect, and I've actually seen people like in the, I think the Habs subreddit, there have been people have done like Ask Me Anythings about prospects in this draft, some scout guys, and they're kind of like, Letourneau's one of those guys, Jesse, you just have no idea what he's going to do because his development curve is so bizarre. Like, it's almost impossible to predict whether he'll actually be good or just never play a second in the NHL. Would you go for a second round pick on Dean Letourneau? I mean, anyway, 61 points in an under 18 AAA, St. Andrews College. He's an interesting guy. I gotta be honest, I haven't really watched enough film on him to form my own opinion yet. So I hate to say, oh yeah, I guarantee they should take him or no, but a 6'7" forward that put up 61 goals, even though it was a lower level than most other draft prospects, is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and speaking of where he's at with the consensus of the scouts, like having a second round pick on him isn't too wild of a move, right? All the same. Obviously, with that size, no matter what league, he's showing that he definitely has some talent there. But Josh, are we matching today? Is that what's going on?
It sure looks like it. Well, let me at least get my Habs hat. 1 second. Let me at least do that. You're gonna have to carry this hat while I'm walking over here. Okay, here we go.
I swear that we did not plan that.
Have a Habs logo. But it's the Caufield hat. You guys know the Caufield hat, right? This is the Cole Caufield designed hat. So now we're matching. I didn't even realize. Our headsets are different, but it is what it is. Yeah, what do you guys think of that? We're matching. We didn't even know that. Joe the Snoop says, good morning, evening. Joe, coming in right before we're going to end off the stream. I'm so sorry, but thank you so much for stopping by. I see some questions. Ikram saying, I bought my Caufield jersey after that goal. I assume the Braden McNabb, the one against Vegas. Yeah, makes sense. Caps, yeah, why is Cap Friendly going away? Washington Capitals just decided to buy it. Cap Friendly has a lot of really cool features that teams were paying for, so now the Capitals are just going to say, see ya. All these other teams are not going to be able to use it, but look, there were other websites before Cap Friendly, and there's going to be other websites after. I forget the name of the one before it, but I didn't use it super frequently. But there was a bigger one before Cap Friendly came in and kind of took over. I think Puckpedia or another website will be able to come up and do its own thing. So it's a sad day because I think we all love Cap Friendly, but it is what it is. Jesse, I think that might just have to do it. This was a wonderful stream. Thank you so much. We got over 300 people in here right at the end. Some days I wish we could go a little longer, but it's like, 300 people in here is unbelievable stuff, and I'm so thankful for it. So thank you, everyone who tuned in today. And on your way out, I wanted to get you guys to leave a like on the stream. I know I ask a lot, but we know we got to ask for it because it helps us out, helps you guys out. Final chat. Last time Josh left his chair during a live is during the draft when he couldn't believe the pick. I'm not doing that again this year. I've learned my lesson. That should be scrubbed from history. It was more of a meme because we did immediately start praising Reinbacher. I don't even have that other jersey. We're not even going to talk about that. But Joel has been around for a while. He's seen some stuff. He's seen that stream. But Jesse, any final thoughts before we shut this one down?
Always a pleasure having, doing the live, being here with all of you guys. We really appreciate all your questions, your comments, your support, everything else.
Yeah, it's been unbelievable. Final thing from Blanco. Could you tell us more about how Habs Digest Fantasy would work? So for all the people that are at the tier of channel membership, that includes a fantasy hockey draft. Before the season starts, probably 2 to 3 weeks before the season starts, we will host a live fantasy draft. We will probably, I'm guessing, do a live stream through channel membership. I'm pretty sure you can do channel member only lives. So that would be my guess. We might do it through Discord, but it's probably going to be through YouTube live. So we'll probably have a live chat. We'll try and invite some people in. Discord's probably the easiest. I know a lot of you guys don't really use Discord when we asked about it before, but we'll have a look. So anyway, what would happen is we would set up the fantasy draft. We would get your information through the channel membership tab. We'll get you guys to reach out to us. We would send emails, invites to the Yahoo Fantasy League, and then we would do a live stream, whether on Discord, whether on YouTube channel members, one of those things. And we would live stream stream the draft where we have some people coming in chatting with us, and then we just kind of go through the whole fantasy draft, and then throughout the season we'd have channel member updates where we'd kind of show the standings week by week and do stuff like that. So that's what we have in an ideal world for next season. So thank you for asking about that. It's not something we talk about a lot, but if you guys are interested in fantasy hockey and you want to be part of the Habs Digest community fantasy hockey, join and be a channel member. So that's what we would do. Yeah, so Yahoo's usually what we do, though we're open to interpretation. I'm up for pretty much whatever. It doesn't really matter. I'm more used to Yahoo, so that's probably why I would do it. But if you guys have a preference, it is what it is. But Joel says, take care, guys. Stay tuned to Habs Digest for more news coming. That's right, Joel. And if you enjoyed this stream, leave a like on your way out, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we got a daily Habs content that you won't want to miss. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.